I've made a batch of Alton Brown's Aged Eggnog on this channel every year since 2021. The first year, I just felt like giving it a shot and documenting the process because it sounded interesting, but also because in 2022, I wanted to taste it after it aged for an entire year and compare it to a batch made with more expensive spirits. In 2023, I wanted to hone in on the perfect spirits for an aged eggnog that could please anyone who tried it, and last year, I wanted to see what impact excluding the dairy for aging and mixing at the time of consumption had on the final drink, and also tested half and half, and also compared it to Costco's crappy eggnog. And also made 2 Elder Scrolls themed nogs, an official one from the first cookbook, and a coquito-esque egg and dairy free one created by the excellent Tamrielic food blogger Talviel's Kitchen. This year, I want to talk eggs, specifically egg yolk quality. It's a subject many comments have requested I cover, and in January of 2024, Ethan Chlebowski posted a video all about expensive versus cheap eggs that I very much enjoyed. Check it out after this if you're hankering for a deeper dive into the minutia of the egg industry, but the pertinent info for us today is that not all eggs, or the chickens that laid them, are created equal. There are also a lot of words used on cartons that aren't objective and don't have strict legal definitions, meaning they're kinda useless beyond making consumers feel good about their purchase. But from what I gathered in Ethan's video, the term that has the most stringent regulations is pasture-raised. To be able to claim pasture-raised on a package, there must be a minimum of 108 square feet per chicken in the pasture, the fields must be rotated, and the hens must be outdoors year-round, barring very inclement weather for a maximum of 2 weeks, but also have access to some form of housing to protect themselves from predators at night. From an objective quality testing perspective, the macronutrients found in eggs are determined by the hen's diet. Nutraceutical eggs are produced by hens with an enriched diet to really pump those numbers up, but a study in Poland published in 2017 that compared nutraceutical, organic, and conventional eggs revealed that organic eggs had a higher average concentration of fats, protein, and potassium. However, the differences were fairly small, so from a subjective flavor perspective, the cheapest egg yolks will generally taste within an 80 to 90% window of the richness delivered by the higher quality ones. On the other hand, for our purposes, aging does tend to bring out both the best and the worst in food, so perhaps that window will increase. Only one way to find out. To set up our testing parameters, I thought it would be useful to use the same eggs I've used on all of the other batches thus far in Eggland's Best cage-free white eggs, compared to a batch made with their brown eggs, which cost slightly more and put cage-free in larger text on the carton, despite the white ones also bearing the designation, and then get the absolute most premium eggs I could find for our third option. Nutraceutical eggs are not easy to come by, and I was not about to further delay this video to hunt some down, but I was able to snag a carton of organic pasture-raised eggs from Vital Farms as our most premium option, which ran me $10 for a dozen. They even have a little QR code where you can see the pasture where the chickens are raised. I'm actually really glad I didn't start this project when egg prices soared earlier this year. Now for the spirits. Like I mentioned last year, we're moving back to Hennessy VS for our cognac. I like its profile the most, even in its VS over some of the better VSOPs we've tried over the years, although their VSOP is still my top choice. I just couldn't bring myself to spring for it after all my unintentionally lengthy home renovations this year. For the rum, we'll stick with Appleton Estates Signature Blend. It's good, cheap, not overpowering, and I still have a ton at the bar here. For the bourbon, I almost went with Ancient Age, as it's a great budget whiskey distilled by Buffalo Trace, albeit in their higher rye mash bill number 2, while my first 2 videos in this series used mash bill number 1 whiskeys, which are sweeter and less spicy. However, I actually chose an outlier this year, Overbrook Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's also a 40% spirit and has a mash bill of 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye, which I think means it has an even higher rye percentage than Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 2, but we'll talk about the real reason I chose this bourbon after we taste the homemade batches. Now, for the recipe itself. If you've watched my other videos, you've heard it multiple times, so I'm gonna skip voicing over with the instructions from Alton's website this year, but the text is still on screen if you want to follow my particular batch proportions. I decided to do third batches rather than full batches. I liked the size of the half batches last year, but they still resulted in about a quart and a pint of eggnog, which was kind of inconvenient to jar, so I wanted to shoot to just have a quart per batch. The egg yolks definitely looked richer as the price went up, so I'm excited to compare them on taste in the final eggnogs. I'm also aging the dairy with this batch, so we're only testing one variable of Alton's website recipe at a time, although some comments on my previous videos have pointed out that contrary to the website instructions, his original recipe does mix the dairy at the end, so I still might make that the standard for future years. Also, I definitely hit that quart per batch mark, which was a great feeling. Also, as we discovered in last year's video, my garage fridge has seen better days and can't maintain a safe temperature in the summer months, even on its max settings, so we're just gonna have to skip comparing to last year's batch again. Maybe I'll upgrade it someday, but I think I'll store this batch in my inside fridge for the time being so we have a shot at comparing to future recipes again. And here they are, my 3 different egg yolk versions of Alton Brown's Aged Eggnog. My home renovations did get in the way of being able to age this for the 42 days I've done in previous videos, but like we established last year, the fresher dairy retains a brighter character, so maybe a 2-week aged eggnog will be the Goldilocks recipe. Let's put on the holiday cheermeister crown and find out. The sweater's a little too jingly to rock for this. Now for a first observation, I don't know if it's coming through on the camera. I think it probably is between these two, but the color is very different across the board. Obviously increasing in a yellower character as you get to the more premium side of the table. So I'm excited to see how this goes. I think it's probably safe to give us a good baseline with the egg we've been using in previous videos. Yep. Tastes like it should. The Overbrook is coming through a little more peppery than some of the other bourbons that we've used in the past. Obviously I can't compare to them, but I remember what they taste like. But other than that, nothing's really standing out. There's a little different smell on this one. I don't know in what direction, so I'm just gonna have to taste it. I'm going to say that the body's a little thicker on the Eggland's Best brown eggs, and I am picking up a slightly richer flavor and a little bit more of a honey sweetness. Now let's jump over to the big boy. On the nose, we're in the very same ballpark, so not going to say much there. That is very good. I'm going to have to taste the other ones again just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, this probably won't come as much of a surprise, but that one does taste the best. It is creamier and richer, and overall just tastes more cohesive. And also there is kind of like this almost wheat-y flavor going on in it. Like just a hint, but a different kind of sweetness than is coming out of either of those two. However, whatever variables that the brown eggs from Eggland's Best contributed did give it a noticeably thicker body. Like, I don't know if this is gonna be visible on camera, but like this compared to this is a lot thicker. Oops, got a little splash on me. Oops. And this is kind of like a melding of the two. So the pasture-raised ones are still a little thicker than the Eggland's Best White, but they are not as thick as the Eggland's Best Brown. I suppose it makes sense because they're coming from different species of chicken across the board, because that's more or less what dictates egg color. Not really that it's a higher quality, it's just different. But whatever kind of hen laid that egg gave it a little more goopiness. I don't have the Ethan Chlebowski style technical know-how to tell you why. but maybe he can tell us. I still think I would choose this one across the board, but I do like the thickness of the brown eggs. And I do think that given this tasting, I may just say goodbye to the Eggland's Best white eggs for future batches. Sorry, but we do this once a year, so I might as well drop the money for the Boozy eggs. Not to mention, the chickens are treated much better in a pasture-raised environment, and you can feel good about that. Now, let's talk about the real reason I chose Overbrook for our bourbon. As I was speeding through the liquor store to pick up some Hennessy VS and a new bourbon, I saw this Overbrook Traditional Eggnog on the shelf for $15. If you recall from last year's video, I lamented the fact that Costco opted for the lower quality choice of making their alcoholic eggnog with other than standard orange wine, rather than actual spirits like they had done in their first releases that I never got to try. This ready-to-drink Boozy Nog stood out because it actually does incorporate real spirits. The bottle says it's made with Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, rum, brandy, blended whiskey, fresh dairy, and artificial colors and FD&C yellow number 5. So, I don't think there are any eggs in it. Since it's from Overbrook, I assumed they probably used their own whiskeys in the batch, so I thought it would be fitting to do so in ours for a good comparison and possibly give you a better RTD eggnog to consider than Costco's ill-fated concoction. In my research, I couldn't determine what rum and brandy was used. I've sent them an email about it. If they get back to me, I'll update you in the comments. Let's crack into this and see how it holds up to the real deal. I didn't see any text on the bottle indicating artificial flavors or what spices may or may not have been used, but it kind of has that almost banana-y artificial eggnog smell that you get from store-bought eggnog. So I don't know if there's natural flavors or artificial flavors, or they used some proprietary mix of spices and whatnot, but it smells very akin to an eggnog you would buy off the shelf that isn't boozy. It's not bad. I'm gonna say it is several leagues better than whatever Costco is doing. But is it still anywhere near these ones? I would say no. I would say if you've got the time and space and money and etc. to make it yourself, do that. But for a holiday party or something where you just need the eggnog and don't have time to bust out the KitchenAid and all the stuff that goes into making this eggnog and don't want to make a mess, and you just need something that's decent and does not taste like a weird wine byproduct, I would say this is a good choice. There's almost like a butteriness on the palate there, and maybe a little bit more of that peppery rye note from Overbrook's bourbon. Yeah, the Hennessy is definitely coming through a lot on these ones, giving it more of a rich, caramely sweetness. I have no idea what sort of proportions went into this one, but I would say that the Overbrook mixed one leans more into the whiskey side of things and further from the rum and brandy side, which makes sense because it does come from a whiskey distillery, so that is more or less their forte, and they probably had access to that at a much lower price point. So it would make sense to use more of that and less of the other spirits. They may have tried distilling their own versions of those spirits, but I have no idea. Again, I'll let you know if they say anything. Yeah, a buttery and banana-y note there, whereas that is notably not on these ones. Well, as rushed as this experiment felt to me, I'm happy with our results. I do really like the pasture-raised eggnog the most and think we're going to be better served choosing those eggs in the future, but the brown eggs from Eggland's Best, I don't know if it was just a fluke with whatever I got, but these are very interestingly thick and chewier, and the white eggs from Eggland's Best are a little lackluster in comparison, but I would say that they're still within about an 80% window. The margin of difference is small enough between these three that you're probably fine using whatever egg yolks you have access to, but if you can opt for the pasture-raised organic blah blah blah, it will taste a little higher quality. So I'm interested to see if these hold up for us to taste again next year and see if those differences grow with time, because we could be looking at this one tasting night and day compared to this one in a year's time. Who knows? Well, we will next year, I suppose. if my fridges would behave. Also, I'm happy to have found a more passable RTD eggnog. Even if I prefer the flavor profile of the real recipe, I would still drink this if it was served to me. The Costco one's a little harder to say that about, but this is still a great option. Now for next year's project, as always, I take the comments from previous year's batches into consideration when thinking about what I want to test in the next Aged Eggnog video, so leave your thoughts in the comments. I do have a general idea of something I'd like to try when I made this batch. Since I had some leftover spirits, I just mixed them with a bottle of eggnog from my milkman so I'd have something to sip while I waited for these to actually age. However, it got me thinking, what if we mixed the same spirits with some store-bought eggnogs in the right proportions and tried aging that? It could result in some heinous libations, or maybe we'll find some diamonds in the rough. Either way, I think it would make for an interesting video. But let me know what you think about the idea, and any other suggestions you might have. Like I said in last year's video, as much as this channel is now decidedly about drinks from video games, TV, and movies, I'm not just gonna ditch the Aged Eggnog series. It's too fun to not do. This is my final video of the year, but considering that the Fallout TV show is releasing an episode a week instead of all at once like I thought they would, and we've got A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms coming out very soon, you can expect more Fallout and Game of Thrones drinks very early in the new year, and a lot more Elder Scrolls. I lament the fact that I wasn't able to get more Elder Scrolls videos out this year to coincide with the Oblivion remaster, but making my house livable again has been my priority for the majority of 2025, to the point that I unfortunately still haven't had time to play the remaster. Now that we're on the tail end of all that construction, I've got some catching up to do, and I think you'll really enjoy the videos that are coming out in 2026. I maintain the belief that it's better to make videos that you actually want to see or watch versus strictly trying to capitalize on trends. It keeps you from getting burnt out, and I think it's clear when that starts to happen on a channel. Obviously, it's ideal if you can swing getting videos out while people have the source material on the mind, but I also try to make my videos watchable even if someone stumbles across them years later. That being said, thank you for watching this video to the end, and consider liking, subscribing, or joining the channel with a membership if you like the videos I make, or even hype the video. I still don't really know what that actually does, but it's popped up enough that it probably doesn't hurt to mention. I can't wait to dive in on more projects in the new year. Until then, you can tap here to subscribe and check out the channel, here for the Patreon, here for the rest of my eggnog playlist, or here for my Fallout playlist if you're itching for some Nuka-Cola goodness. Cheers, and see you in 2026, my friends.